Welcome to part 2 in my Dan upgrade and refurbishment video. In this video we show you how we've cleaned up and serviced the regulator and what we've done to the cylinder. You'll remember the cylinder had surface corrosion. It also had one of those plastic vinyl layers on, which we've removed. We'll show you how we removed that, and the cylinder's in pretty good shape now. We also found out what its capacity was. We measured the water volume. And really, yeah, I'm very pleased with the way it's come out. So please enjoy the video. If you want to see part 3, where I put the whole kit back together and replace the seal on the case and give you a few tips, please hit the subscribe button. Before we inspect the inside of the cylinder, let's just go through the markings. This tells us that it's a Transportation Canada and a DOT aluminium cylinder. The charge pressures are there, both in metric for Canada and imperial PSI for the US. We've then got the serial number, the manufacturer, when it was made, and this little oval with a 2 inside it. Now, I looked in my PSI PCI markings guide, which is very comprehensive, but this wasn't in there. I did reach out to them, to Mark Gresham. He came immediately back to me and said this is to indicate that it's a O2 or oxygen cylinder, and it will be in the updated guide to cylinder markings that's coming out later this year. You will notice there is no indication of water capacity. So I'm assuming this is a Jumbo D cylinder, which I believe correctly has a full volume of 648 litres of air, but I'm not sure. So what we're going to do next is just determine the water capacity. Finally, these are hydro marks on here. I don't know who hydroed it, but the way that they're marked leads me to believe that it wasn't a reputable outfit, probably someone who does fire extinguisher cylinders cheaply. I'm not sure, but it's going away now to be hydroed by a proper facility. Before I attempt to determine the amount of the corrosion on the exterior of the cylinder, I'm just going to get the valve removed and look inside to make sure that's okay and we haven't got any problems there. You can see previously, probably when it was hydroed, this valve has been removed, not very gently. You can see damage there on the chrome. These valves are not very expensive, but being here in Dubai at the moment, I haven't got access to a new one, so we'll take this one out, put it back in, and when I've got some things coming from the States, I'll order a new one and just change it out, because I'm sure that undercutting on the chrome is going to get far worse. Tried to remove the valve and it's really stuck. You see there's some corrosion around the neck, so I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to take this over to Alboom Marine and get them to remove the valve for me, because they've got all the really good equipment.
It's in bloody tight. And we're off.
So we've got the valve loosened off now, so we can easily take it out. It's worth noting that these cylinders have a Teflon seal, PTFE seal, rather than an O-ring. And I'm just going to lift this out. There we go. Whoops, that's lively. And now we're going to have a look inside. I'm just going to go in. Yeah, and the cylinder looks pretty good. There is a little bit of staining in there. Could be very, very slight surface corrosion, but it's fine. We are going to clean this cylinder out. We are going to oxygen clean it again anyway. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So what we can do now, we're going to work on removing this clear coat that's on here with the corrosion that's underneath it, and then we'll see if we've got any pitting or not. And yeah, we still may have to condemn this cylinder. I don't think so. I think we can fix this, but let's go outside and start removing the clear coat. Hi everyone, meet Praveen. Praveen's going to remove the clear coat from this cylinder. Notice he's got all his protective equipment on because it's not a very pleasant chemical. It's a gel made by a company called Excalibur, specially designed for removing coatings from aluminium in the aviation industry. So you simply paint the gel on, and it takes about 10 minutes for the gel to react and lift the coating. Notice we've put a bolt in the top with PTFE tape just to stop any of the chemical going inside the cylinder, but then we can remove the coating from around the neck because there was some corrosion evident there. You can see here, just after a few minutes, the paint remover or coating remover has started to do its job. This whole cylinder will now bubble as the coating is attacked by the paint removing gel. Yeah, you can see it actually happening. The clear coat has now started to bubble as well. So it'll take just about 10 minutes, and then we can wipe the gel off and then go and wash the cylinder, and we're then ready to inspect the corrosion. Again, this is literally minutes after we've applied the gel. Okay, it's just been a little over 10 minutes. Now we're going to scrape the coating off and reapply the gel. You can see there's still some coating remaining on the cylinder. This is what's come off on the first run with the paint remover. We'll now apply paint remover again to get most of it off before we then use water and a Scotch-Brite pad to remove the final pieces. This time the gel has reacted much faster, obviously because it had already softened up the coating the first time round. So Praveen here is just now scraping off the remaining coating. He'll then go and give it a good clean with water and a Scotch-Brite pad, and then we'll have a look at it. So we've got the paint stripped off the cylinder now. You can see all the corrosion is visible. And what we're going to do now is just clean this up and see how badly corroded it is. And what do we use? Well, I use some Scotch-Brite scouring pads, and I use some WD-40. Okay, you've got to be careful using this around the workshop because it's not oxygen compatible, I'm pretty sure of that. So I just do like that. And then clean up the cylinder, and you can see it removes. Alright, I've got cardboard on here which I'm going to change after I've done this and replace it with clean cardboard so it's not contaminated with the WD-40. If you're keeping your cylinders in a naked aluminium finish, then just keep rubbing in one way like this, because you don't want to scratch the grain. You can see there's a few scratches on there from the scraper when we were taking off the paint. We should be able to polish those out with this, as you can see, but I'm going to paint this cylinder anyway. I'm going to paint it all green at the end, and you can see that. What we'll do afterwards, we'll wash this with hot water and detergent before we come and do the final inspection. But you can see there, I mean, the corrosion's not very bad once it's cleaned up, so I don't think this is going to be a fail by any means. Yeah, there's hardly anything. I can't even feel it. The Scotch-Brite I'm using is the heavy duty one, not the the sort of softer ones you get on the sponges. You could put this in on a tumbler. I wouldn't recommend it because you've got WD-40 going around, but you just want to use a bit of elbow grease. Right, we'll get this all cleaned up. There you can see, look at that. So really it's very just only surface corrosion. There's no pitting whatsoever. So this cylinder is going to be fine. So I'm going to get this finished now, finish my visual inspection, and then we're going to send it off for hydro. When it comes back from hydro and oxygen clean, we'll then paint it. Notice I've still got my stopper in there. Nothing can get into the cylinder. You definitely don't want the cylinder open when you're using WD-40. So there's the cylinder ready. You can see hardly any corrosion. It looked a lot worse than it was. So now this will go for hydro and paint. We'll clean up the valve a little bit, and then we should be good to go when we reassemble or put back together. So I brought the regulator over to Alboom Diving, where Stevie, who's in charge of the workshop, has offered to just clean up this regulator for me, remove as much of the corrosion as possible, and he's got a few ideas on how we can protect the fittings on the end, which he's going to let me know when I pick it up. So it's going to need a new hose. I've managed to get a white hose. I would have preferred a green, but there's only white hoses available, so it's still an oxygen hose. And then he's going to replace the burlap washer with one of these new ones, and I've got a spare one to keep in the box. I'm back at Alboom Diving with Stevie, the workshop manager, and they've turned this regulator around for me in 24 hours, which is amazing. I didn't expect that. I just dropped a cylinder into them for hydro, and Stevie said, "What do you reckon to this?" And it was ready. Now just have a quick look at that. I mean, compared to what it was like, it's absolutely in great condition. Still a little bit of corrosion. Well, it's not marks, corrosion marks. Couldn't get rid of those, but they've cleaned it all up. They've serviced where they can. Do you want to talk us through it, Stevie?
Okay, well, this is a Life Support Products oxygen regulator, and unfortunately spare parts for this are not easy to come by. So consequently we can only do an oxygen clean of all parts of the regulator. We have cleaned the connections, we have cleaned the free flow area, we have cleaned the inlet and replaced the Bodox seal, and we've replaced all of the seals using oxygen compatible PTFE. The O2 compatible PTFE is easier to control than the liquid because it means it definitely doesn't get anywhere that it shouldn't. The first stage is looking good, the second stage is looking excellent, and of course with the brand new hose, even though it is a new hose, the fittings have been O2 cleaned as well, so that everything is in perfect condition, ready for use.
Stevie, I noticed you had some plastic caps. Where did you get those from? Because that's a big criticism I have of the Dan O2 regulator, is you can't protect the ends. It just comes, it's a medical device used in a scuba environment. And I've actually made a seal for the Bodox, which I'll show later on. But where did you get those from? I've looked all over for them.
These actually have come from various suppliers covering items of spare parts. This is from a piston for a Scuba Pro regulator. These are from hose connections, which are from quarter BSP hoses, which are quite unusual, but fit rather nicely.
All right, that's excellent, Stevie. Thanks very much. Everyone, this is Stevie McLeod, workshop manager at Alboom Diving, and they've really helped me out. Okay, and here's the cylinder back now. You can see it's been tested in December. SD is the unique mark for Alboom Diving, their workshop. So yeah, it's tested. You see now we've got an oxygen sticker on, and then there's our visual inspection been done, and then you can see these are stickers that I've made up. We'll talk about these a bit more later, but here we can check the pressure every month and just sign it off, and down here is details on how much oxygen we've got and how long we can treat 1 or 2 casualties, depending on, are we using a demand regulator or are we using a non-rebreather mask? I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail in part 3. And you can also see we're allowed on DOT cylinders to stamp on the neck. So we've determined this is a 22 cubic foot cylinder, so we've called it an M22 for medical, 22 cubic feet. So that makes it much more easier in the future to know more about the cylinder. And finally, we cleaned up the valve. It's looking pretty good. We've still got a little bit of damage there. As I said in the previous video, we will change this out as soon as I've got a shipment coming from the USA. Then we'll put a new valve in. They're not very expensive. But what's really clever is this here. Again, in part 3 I'll tell you where they're from, but this is a they're used in hospitals and in medical facilities for fully charged cylinders, so you know it's fully charged. But more importantly, for me, using this on a dive boat in a diving situation, it tells me no one's played with the cylinder, and it stops debris or dirt getting into the valve. And as we learn when we do nitrox courses, we want to try and prevent any sort of debris or dirt getting into an oxygen cylinder. So part 3, I'll tell you about these and where to get them from, but that now is ready to go back in the box, which the part 3 video of this is. It will show you everything else that I've done to upgrade the Dan kit. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. You know, I was really happy that we managed to salvage the regulator. We've got it back into very serviceable condition, so yeah, that's really good. And the cylinder, that's come out really well, and now that cylinder is looked after, visually inspected every year. It's going to last a long time. Luckily, the surface corrosion was hardly anything, and we fully painted the cylinder to protect it in future. So yeah, I think a job well done. Hit the subscribe button, because in part 3, which is probably the best video to watch, to be honest, we put it all back together in its box, and we've got a new seal and some other stuff which I want to show you, and a couple of tips for you to get the most out of the Dan O2 kit. So see you next time.